Ignition sequence start. 3, 2, 1.
Range is hot. Lock and load. It's time for the Gun Rack with your hosts, Joey and Drew.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Gun Rack Sonoran Desert Institute School of Firearms Technology's official podcast. I'm Josiah Upper. Folks call me Joey, and with me we have two individuals, and I'm not going to serve this up as poorly as I did about 2 weeks ago. So first we have one,
Drew Poplin.
and then you get to tee up our guest today.
So the guest we have on the show, we are very excited to have him on the show. Technically, he's been on the show before, but this is really the first time, he's getting the full gun rack experience.
Yeah.
We are joined by David Rains, SDI graduate and award winner as well.
Good afternoon.
Guten Tag to you, sir. My German needs to be brushed up on.
Das ist sehr gut.
It needs to exist in the first place for it to be brushed up on, dude.
I'll have you know, there was a solid 1 month when when COVID was a thing that
Did you attempt to Duolingo German?
Yes.
I have attempted to Duolingo in the past 6 months, both Polish and Navajo.
Whoa.
Have the discipline. It's supposed to be one of the hardest languages to learn. So I was like, game on. And then a weekend I was like, this is mentally taxing and I have no discipline. So it's like I'm already in grad school. That part of my brain's like full.
So I can understand why you wanted to learn Navajo, because again,
Yes.
incredibly difficult language. So it's like, well, one, you get the satisfaction of learning that. Two, if you can learn Navajo, you can learn, pretty much any other language. And three, you sound really cool to be like, oh yes, I do speak a little Navajo myself.
Yes.
But why
Like Nico
Polish?
Hirsch. Why Polish? At the time, I was doing some interviews with a company that was, I don't know if it was originally based out of Poland or happened to have a Polish president, but the staff was, a lot of them spoke Polish. So I was like, well, let's see where this rabbit trail goes. And if I'm going to learn the language of a European country, at one point, I spoke very comfortable conversational Spanish. I won't call myself fluent because the standard in my brain for that has always been, if you can think in a language, then you're fluent in it. And I never got quite there, but
If you can dream,
I took it for
if you
5
can
years
dream in that
and-
language.
yeah. But I was like, if I'm going to go the route of European languages again, I'm not going to do French because I have dignity and I'm an American. And I have too many friends who speak German already, and I don't want them to check me, and it's just a disaster.
Wait, you have a lot of friends that speak German?
By a lot, I mean like two, but
I mean, that's more than I have as far as friends.
Yeah,
that
that's
speak
what I'm
German.
saying.
You guys have friends?
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. So I was like, Polish is kind of cash money. Like it's difficult and might be valuable. And their military history makes my heart happy. So all sorts of wonderful things over there.
And hey, you'd be like one of the only people that could talk to Henry Zabrowski in
That's
Polish.
what I'm saying. I'm sure if I spoke Polish to him, he would be able to answer in kind.
I'm sure that's exactly how that situation will go down. And so, with that being said, David, thank you for hopping onto the podcast. You also, I guess, technically are the winner of a Drew's Clues.
Yay!
Yeah,
My man snagged a dub like the second he got on.
yeah. He's like, by the way, has anyone got the Drew's Clues from last week right? And I was like, yeah, no, I don't think so. So he got it. It was the Keltec KSG, or that was our most recent one as of time of recording. So David, how did you get that right?
When I was working the gun counter at Stan's Mary Mart, we had a KS7, which is essentially a KSG just cut in half. It's a single tube. same pump action. And then we had quite a few KSGs on the shelf as well, right before the magazine ban of 2021 that went through Washington State. So they came in and they flew off the shelf. They did not stay long, but I was like, okay, it's a bullpup. Okay, it's 2 tubes of 7+7. Okay, it's pump action and it's 26 inches long. And I'm like, okay, well, the barrel's got to be 18 and a half, like you said, to be shotgun. So I was like, kind of counted on my fingers, trying to do my mental math, because I've worked on a few of the CMRs. I like Kel-Tec, but Kel-Tec feels like it's 150 years behind its time. I think like in 2077, they'll be in cyberpunk everywhere.
Yes.
But it was the fact that it was when you said 2 mags of 7+7, it was like, because there's like the IWI, they make that rotating drum that's got the 4 tubes. I was like, nah, that's not it, and that's semi-automatic. So I just kind of did a little thought process and process of elimination of wait, that's a Kel-Tec. And then I'm like, haha,
put them deduction skills to use. I see.
I got to be good for something.
Yeah. So as I mentioned, David, you were on, quote unquote, on the show way back last year. I think it published May 23rd. It was episode 105, Grad Speak with David Rains. Since then, the podcast has kind of grown, a little bit more. So for maybe those that aren't aware of who you are and sort of what your story was, would you mind kind of like giving a shortish summary of how you ended up at SDI, what happened, and just sort of what that whole experience means to you?
Sure. Absolutely. Up until the point that I decided to enroll at SDI, I was the production manager at a local distillery here in town. On the verge of COVID striking down, our business was closed. We were declared a non-essential business. So we had to shutter the doors. It was me and the boss. We had 2 people working in a 6,000 square foot building. It was ridiculous. So with me being out of work
just did that math.
Yeah. With me being unemployed for a period of time while recovering from said surgery, I decided what can I do? And I had been a big fan of most of the gun tubers on YouTube. So, what do you do when you're staying at home and watching your kid? Put on YouTube. So I started to see more and more ads for SDI pop up, and then like Hickok 45 and Demo Ranch and, a couple of others pop up. And I was like, probably a year or so prior to that, I had seen like Full Sail University and whatnot. I'm like, media creation. I've got an artist background and whatnot, but it was like, I don't know if I really want to do that. But SDI is guns. I'm like, well, I'm American. I'm a white male. I love guns. So I reached out to my current advisor at the time was Sasha Gebert. She was, no, it was McMahon. It was McMahon was my academic advisor. So I did the little preview and I got enrolled and saw, okay, let's do my financial aid, see if I could afford to do this and whatnot. And I did. It turned out like, yeah, I could do this. Let's try for it. So you offered the associate's program, but I didn't know if I wanted to commit to 2 years essentially. So like, let's go for the certificate. Mind you, I was homeschooled till I was 16. I did 4 years of vocational at a little skill center in town. So I had
cool.
I had 2 years of video production and 2 years of network and TV broadcasting and computer technology under my belt. So that's what I did for 4 years up into my early 20s. So, but I was trying to go to the college while I was working overnights. The wife and I were planning for our wedding. I tried to just overwork myself, in the words of Bilbo Baggins, butter spread over too much bread. So then I enrolled in SDI. I was recovering from surgery from said pituitary tumor. And I decided, okay, let's try this. So 10 months, not bad. It's doable in 8, but my first 2 classes I had to retake at the end because I had no idea what I was doing. Growing up with Arlie Army and Future Weapons and, History Channel and all that, I thought, I'm pretty good at this and whatnot. I got this. I had no idea. I was grossly misinformed about my capabilities at SDI because at the time I was like, what's ballistic coefficient? And so having to retake those and learn. And then that's when I had an opportunity to meet Gavin. And so I spent a day at Gavin's shop, and then I followed him on YouTube to watch his. And so I started to transition my hobbies to be all firearms related. Mark Novak, the guys at CN Arsenal, started to have them up and watch them constantly. Just fully saturate myself in that industry was the best methodology for me, because I'm just a sponge. I've gone through so many jobs and so many careers in the last decade and a half that it's like, how do you learn that so fast? We can. So went through the certificate program. I took a year off, and then Sasha reached out to me and said, hey David, we'd like to nominate you for the DEAC award. I said, that is what? So she explained that it's an outstanding graduate for any school enrolled in the DEAC program. So it was like, we'd like to nominate you. Like, okay. So I filled out some paperwork, sent it off. Last I heard of it. Then a couple months goes by and she reaches out to me and says, David, congratulations, you won the nomination. Like, oh, we'd like to fly you and the wife down to Arizona to receive your award in person. So not even enrolled, not even an active student at this time. The school flew me down to Tempe, and I got to stay in a nice hotel. The wife and I got to spend the weekend essentially away from home. I received my award in person. We did the virtual graduation ceremony. I got to meet Lawrence Keene. That was great. And then it was after that I had taken some time and just kind of, and it was probably about 6 months later, because I think I re-enrolled October of this last year.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, I'm already halfway there. I have like 32, 34 credits or something like that. So I'm like, I'm already halfway to my associates. And me and Cassie hem and hawed at it. And I'm like, I've already got 90% of the stuff in the shop that I need to finish this. And I was laid off from my job at Stan's Mary Mart. So come July of 2022, I was unemployed. So I did an electrical apprenticeship for a few months after that. And then I spent most of the rest of 2022 unemployed. But it was towards that tail end there, like, let's do it. I decided to commit to it. Like, I've got an associate's degree. Being homeschooled, I had never really had anything other than my GED under my belt. So it was like, I could have an official associate's degree in a kick-ass field from a nationally accredited school. And it's like, okay, yeah, I'm going to do this. So I reached out to Sasha, and then is Alicia Todd was my advisor at this point, because Sasha had been promoted. So she was elsewhere in the department. I had a couple conversations with Alicia, and she's like, sure, we'd love to have you back. So I redid the FAFSA. They're like, yeah, you're a former student. We've got all your info here. Have changed? Nope, I haven't changed my identity yet. So it was really easy. It was really easy to enroll, and I had a bunch of transfer credits. So like I said, I was already halfway there. So it was like, okay, let's do this. But doing all the FTT projects for the certificate program was well and done. I think I've done 2 or 3 FTT projects this entire last half. But I had all my 101 classes, my English, my business, my math. Right now I'm doing my psychology and my physical science. So those were all credits that I didn't earn at the local community college because I had to drop out. So I had to retake those. So it was uncharted territory for me, going from a homeschool student who has his GED to a college student. But the wife had 6 years of college. She's got her bachelor's in early childhood education and development, because after surgery and after the medication, I was about as sharp as a gummy bear. So it was like, I don't know what they mean. And so Cassie would help explain it to me. So I did it. It is tough. I'm about 4 weeks away. I'm slated, knock wood, to graduate in the middle of July.
Nice. Congratulations.
Thank you, sir.
One thing we didn't get to talk about much last time was we didn't get to talk much about the fact you're a family man. And you're kind of flaunting it now. You got a dad shirt on right now.
It's my Father's Day present. I get one every year. I keep all my dad jokes in a database.
I couldn't see the bottom half of that.
Oh yeah,
Uh,
database.
but you mentioned you have a daughter,
I do.
and she is about to graduate preschool, right?
She was born shortly after the cutoff date for the Montessori school here in Kashmir. So her graduation ceremony is those of her class that are graduating kindergarten. She's in the same class, but she's essentially held back because she was born just after that age cutoff. So she won't be graduating this year. It's still a graduation ceremony, but she will graduate from preschool to kindergarten the next school year because she's 3 weeks outside the cutoff. So it's like close but no cigar. So they're doing a little graduation ceremony at the classroom for all the parents and teachers and whatnot. So she's got that. But Amelia will be 5 in August.
Oh wow.
Amelia will be 5 in August. It has been a very fast half decade.
Goodness gracious.
Well,
that'll be kind of cool. Like you guys, having your little graduations and, completions line up.
Yeah.
I want to ask you, what's been the most rewarding part of being a father?
The most rewarding part of being a father for me has had somebody to look after. Growing up, I had really bad self-care. I just forgot to take care of myself, or it wasn't important. But the blessing that Amelia has given me to be somebody that I can give the experiences that I didn't have growing up. I want her to live the life that I didn't as a kid. I grew up in a household of 7 siblings. So I had 6 brothers. No, I had 2 brothers and 4 sisters. So it was a very, very kind of one-sided. And most of my childhood coming up was my older brother and my younger sister. By then, all my older siblings had graduated or moved away or started their family and whatnot. So my older brother wasn't the looking after his younger brother type of brother, unfortunately. So my younger sister and I bonded a lot. So helping Vanessa and helping take care of her and whatnot was great. I love to see that people take better care of themselves because I know what it's like when they don't. So the blessing that Amelia has given me the last 5 years is to see that this child has the upbringing that she deserves. And somebody has helped her. Well, honey, no, we don't do that. And you know why? To keep her from making mistakes that'll get her into trouble at a much younger age, because my brother started to mess up and get into legal trouble, and seeing my brother mess up and kept my nose really clean because it's like, I ain't doing that. I ain't doing that. So the opportunity to help Amelia keep her nose clean and keep out of a jail cell at an early age is going to go a long way as she progresses and, enters middle school and high school and then the college is like, well, that's not a bad thing. We can do that, but that's a bad thing. You shouldn't do that. What's socially acceptable, what's not socially acceptable, yada, yada, yada.
For sure. It's interesting when we talked last, I think I had just proposed to my wife, I think like a week or 2 prior.
Because I had heard it on the podcast.
Yeah.
That's you guys were getting married.
And I'm always, kind of fascinated by those stories of those love stories, how people met, how they fell in love. I wanted to ask if you're okay with it, David. Would you mind sharing, you and your wife's story?
Cassie and I will be married for 10 years this August. Our anniversary is actually the day before Amelia's birthday. We were in the hospital in labor on our anniversary.
Really?
with Amelia being born. So Amelia's born August 24th. Our anniversary is the 25th.
Wow.
So our 5-year wedding anniversary was bringing Amelia into this world, which is the highlight of my life. Love that. Cassie and I met through a mutual friend at a blind date for the Kashmir prom in 2009. I was 21, 22. I was living at home, but I was helping dad in the orchard. I grew up in pear country. So my room and board was paid for by orchard work. So I lived at home. It's nice. School was close. Work was close. We met 2009 prom. I had never been before, so I had a crash course, and here's what goes on at prom. And my mom helped me get a corsage and a boutonniere and just get everything I need to spiff myself up. So I had about 3 weeks to plan and prepare myself for prom because it was closing up quickly in the early March. And so I met Cassie on Skype a few times. Her and our mutual friend kind of chatted in a little chat group when Skype was a thing.
Mm-hmm.
And God, I've just dated myself. At least it's not AIM. At least we weren't talking on AIM or something like that.
No, I remember the Skype days.
And so I decided for it. Awesome. I hadn't seen her in person until the day of, which was March 18th, 2009. We then went off we double dated, and we went to dinner together, and then we went to prom together. And then by the end of the night, I asked, I'd love to continue to see you again. I've had a lot of fun tonight. So then 2 or 3 months go by, and we exchange phone numbers, being all shy with each other. And we end up going to see it was the first or second Transformers movie that came out. I think it was Dark Side of the Moon. So I think it was the second one.
I remember that one.
That was our date night. It became a thing, a tradition after that, to make a date night of every Transformer movie that came out after that. Because Cassie grew up with two younger brothers that always were always watching the movies or always playing the game. So she never really got exposed to that because it wasn't, she didn't do it voluntarily. It was like, hey, we're going to watch this movie. Well, what if I don't want to watch this movie? So I was like, I'm going to go see the new Transformers. Cassie, would you like to go with me? I think I would like that. And then dinner was usually at Red Robin. We have a Red Robin in town. So I was like, that's my jam. Campfire sauce and unlimited ribbon fries just was my thing. I would have people together for my birthday. So it was right around July and whatnot. And it was, ever since then, my dad raised me very polite, very gentleman. Chivalry is a big component of my life. And it was like, I'm not going to push her for a kiss. I'm not going to push her for a kiss. And then she wasn't expecting it, but as we're walking into Red Robin, I kind of did the cliche, grab her by the hand, spin her around, where you spin her into you. And then I dipped with her and I gave her her first kiss, and she was just glowing for the rest of the day. And so we just started the relationship evolved after that. And she started going to school, and her car broke down. So I gave her rides to school. Then my car broke down and she gave me rides to work. And so it became this back and forth together, and she got me moved out of mom and dad's house. Dad reached a point that he didn't need me at the house anymore, and I wanted a little more independence now that I had a girlfriend and life was changing for me and whatnot. So Cassie got me moved into an apartment with some friends of mine, and I got the autonomy. I was complacent living with mom and dad. I enjoyed it. I wasn't in a hurry to go anywhere, but she's like, you could have so much more freedom if you wanted to move out. I'm like, oh, okay, let's do it. So she gave me the opportunity to sense the autonomy that I didn't know I needed or wanted. So we dated for 4 years. It was 2012 when I proposed to her. I took her down to the local park next to the Columbia River here, and I had her blindfolded. And so I was walking her down to the river, and she's like, I hear running water. Please don't throw me in the river. And it's when I dropped to one knee and I proposed to her and whatnot. And then I took her to dinner at Olive Garden. So Olive Garden's her high class restaurant that she really enjoys, that she enjoys going to. So it was and then we saved up. We paid for our own wedding out of pocket. So we took a year to save up for it. I called in all the favors. Her aunt was a baker at the local bakery here in Kashmir that's right next to Applets and Kotlets. Applets and Kotlets has been around for 110 years. Big, well-known all over the place. So her aunt baked our wedding cake. Her aunt made her wedding dress. My mom made all the secondary cakes and all the secondary food all that year leading up to the wedding. And we had planned an outdoor wedding at the Riverside Center here in town. Planned it. It had 250 chairs was already. And about an hour before the ceremony is to start, it starts to rain in the middle of August.
I've heard rain on your wedding day is actually a great sign.
I've been told that as well, but it is logistics. It's a nightmare.
Oh, I'm sure.
So we had to bring everything inside in an hour. So 250 chairs and tables and the archway and everything. So last minute, everything gets moved inside, and we had to flip script a little bit, but it all worked out in the end. That was coming up on a decade ago. The wife and I will be 10 years in August.
Well, congratulations on that, sir.
Thank you.
Yeah, I have a couple more questions, a couple things I wanted to talk about. But before I do that, Joey, do you have any questions so far?
I do, and I have to hop off shortly, so I will ask this, and then I'll let Drew interrogate you a little bit. What was the distillery like? What did y'all make all the things? Did you specialize in a couple things? All
the things. We made a gin. We made a barrel-aged gin. I've made whiskey, vodka. We would get some neutral spirits and would redistill it down with our own water, because you can 90% of the vodka that you find on the shelf today is made in one of like 7 national distilleries. It's then just cut down with their own specific water and then mixed a little bit and whatnot. But we made almost everything in-house. So I had a Voron, which is a VFD fruit crusher. It could pull stone out of fruit. So peaches, apricots, nectarines, cherries. So I've done cherry wine. I've made gin. I've made aquavite. One of my favorites is, I've actually got a bottle of it unopened yet that I'm going to actually open for my graduation. Is a bottle of ouzo. Ouzo is Greek licorice vodka, triple distilled Greek licorice vodka, and I love black licorice. Anything black licorice is just mwah. And I got to keep a bottle of that when we closed up shop. And I spent 5 years or so, and I haven't opened it. And I'm like, maybe I should open that. And then my buddy Carl's like, "Now you should save it for your graduation." And I'm like, oh, "That's a really good idea. That's a really good idea." Yeah. I got to be the part of a limited release before, just as the Boss had opened almost a decade prior to me joining the team. He had put a barrel of whiskey in. So we got to do a limited, like 400 bottle run of a 10-year whiskey that had been aged in-house in cashmere with local ingredients. And so it was it was like a $200 bottle, because there's, such a high, you need a large ROI because it's just sitting there. It's, the time is the investment when it comes to aging a spirit. So it's stuff you can do on the burner of your kitchen. But if you want it to have that flavor profile, you just put it in a closet or put it down in a climate controlled basement for 10 years. Like, oh, okay. But we had the 3rd best gin in the state in 2016. It had a 3rd place award for one of the best gins at the 2016 Washington Wine Show.
Nice.
But it had lavender in it, which is what threw a lot of people, because gin is just like juniper berries, some anise, maybe some orange peel and lemon peel. Oh, gin. Yeah, juniper's great. But we added lavender and hibiscus flowers during the mash process. So that sat for a few weeks, and then it was pumped out, and it had essence of there were some people that could pick it up on it, but not until you told them, "What's that flavor?" It's lavender. They're like,
"It's lavender hiding up in there."
Oh, yeah. I got it now. Yeah. Oh, that's good. I love gin. I was never a big gin guy. Like I said, if it tastes like a pine tree or a car freshener, I'm not interested in it. But it was, when I started on the team, I had to taste everything that he had at the time and give my opinion on it. And I was just kind of, oh, that smells good. Yeah. I said, you should make that an air freshener. He's like, you know what it would be called, David? What? It'd be called probable cause is what it would be. Like, yeah. It's my air freshener, I swear. Sir. Sure it is. Please step out of the car.
Yeah, this is Yeah. Sorry. This is going to take longer than you were thinking.
The distillery was awesome. It was 5 minutes from home. I could wake up at 6 o'clock in the morning, pump in 60 gallons of mash, turn on the heaters because it was all electronically controlled at this point. So we had a 250 watt heater and a big double boiler essentially. So there's no direct contact with the mash. So I could show up at 6 a.m., turn on the pump in 60 gallons, click, 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 and then go home and eat breakfast. Clock in, go home, eat breakfast, come back 2 hours later. Ah, yes, fresh distillate. The cleanest, freshest stuff you'd ever get because it's lived for 5 seconds out of the still, and you're, oh, that's so good. And so that was my favorite job, hands down. And the emperor, in his infinite wisdom, Inslee, sought that we were non-essential. I sold a couple of barrels of non-potable alcohol to the county, the PUD, so they could clean the inside of their vehicles. Right as COVID hit, and the last shipment, I remember the day of putting that last barrel on the pallet for Chelan County, sold that to him, and then like a week later, we got the cease and desist as the LNI and Liquor Control Board cronies showed up and said, "You're done."
Oh, that sucks.
I think anyone that had to live through the COVID-19 times knows that alcohol was most definitely essential.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, ABC stores stayed open down here.
Yeah.
The whole time. So I'm surprised that your component of the supply chain was
we were
shut down.
The stores stayed open. The actual storefront stayed open, but we did not meet the criteria. We were not big enough to stay open. So it was just axe the little guy. Yeah. But it was about 8 months later, we had to sell everything at auction because he said I still had bills to pay. And, COVID lasted 2.5, almost 3 years here in Washington. So 8 months later, we had to load it up all on a truck and sell it at auction. And it was just.
Yeah.
And,
on that sad liquor note, I got to get back to it over here. My very late lunch break is over, but it's good to see you. Good to talk to you. You all have fun, and look forward to listening to the rest of it as you all keep talking.
Sounds good, Joey. Take care of yourself.
All right, guys.
Talk to you later, dude. All right. So, you kind of talked a little bit about it, having the brain surgery. And then I remember you mentioning that you had to go back in and they did some more work.
About 6 months after the surgery, I was readmitted to the University of Washington on the recommendation for Gamma Knife, which the technical term is stereotactic radiosurgery or something. They draw a 3-dimensional map with a couple of MRIs and CAT scans, and they take a radiation laser. They essentially take a laser that's not going to burn the surface of my skin and an isotope, and they blast that tumor in essentially 3 dimensions, essentially 3D printing radiation upon the tumor, if that makes any sense to you.
No, I can follow that.
Because the surgery was considered a failure 6 months prior, because they only were able to excise about 20% of that tumor. That made it inoperable. They couldn't go back in and do it again because it wouldn't have solved anything. The rest of it, the other 80%, had wrapped around my carotids. The cella turcica of your brain is also where the carotid arteries come in to feed all that blood to your brain, and that tumor had grown back and around it. So they could get the front portion, and that was it.
Yeah.
Or else I'd, stroke out on the operating table and eat from a straw for the rest of my life. But I went back in about 6 months later and got 19 gray worth of radiation, enough to trigger the Geiger counter at TSA. And they're like, we hope you don't plan to fly, Mr. Rains. No, I'm just on the other side of the mountain. Oh, okay, good. Because the TSA will probably have questions for you when you enter the airport. But it had they had a physicist there. They had a radiation specialist there. It was a mom and daughter crew there in the radiology department. So I was well taken care of, but I had titanium pins drilled into my head. Essentially, there was tapered titanium pins. I'll have to show you a picture of it at some point.
Yeah.
where I was, this was screwed into my head in 4 spots with just a 3/4 inch drive socket, just ratchet, just on all 4 sides. And it had a reference bar on the back of it. And that's what locked my head onto the table. So I couldn't move even if I wanted to.
Yeah.
Because I'm just stapled to the table.
Mhm.
And then everybody has to leave the room. It's a radiation isotope.
Yeah.
And so everybody had to be out of the room. And so they watched me on camera. But the thing about that is it's not like a normal MRI where you have to stay there for 45 minutes. If I needed to pause to get up to use the bathroom, since that is essentially 0, 0, of XY coordinates, I can always just reset my head back to 0 and they can continue as normal. So it was about 75 minutes of sitting there, just no sensation, nothing that I can feel on my face. They wasn't burning my skin or anything like that, but they have isotopes just yeah. And they had printouts. There's printouts in my chart of, you can see there's this little blue reference line of the path that it drew through my tumor. And I could talk to the doctor or the physicist and whatnot. And I was just like, well, what isotope is it? And he's like, it's technetium-99. It has got a half-life of about 6 hours. So in 6 hours, it's half as potent as it usually is. So in a day, I was gone. I had no more radiation in me, but then my body had to recover from being irradiated. So it was another 5 or 6 weeks of just being inexplicably tired and just, I felt like a Fallout 3 character recovering with Radaway.
Yeah.
But it was an experience. It's I don't recommend anybody get a pituitary adenoma. Cancerous tumors, it honestly is, as sadistic as it may sound, it's almost easier if it was a cancerous tumor because it was non-malignant. So it's not metastasizing anywhere and growing into organs, and it was non-cancerous. So it doesn't grow. It's just a big fatty ball of hormone producing tissue.
Gotcha.
If it was cancerous, it'd be like, just blast them with some chemo, kill it all, huzzah. But that also kills adjacent cells.
Yeah.
So there was a high risk of it actually killing my pituitary. And then I would be on hormone replacement therapy for the rest of my natural life. So that's like, it's a bit extreme. We really don't want to do that, because then you're just getting injections every week for the rest of your natural life. And I'm like, I don't like needles.
Yeah.
So we went the radiation route. And it's stopped growing for the most part as of the recording of this video, but I'm on, like I said, between symptoms and side effects, I've got 9 medications that I take.
Gotcha.
Between like the syncope or the vertigo, or, if you're nauseous, take this, but if you're dizzy, take this. If you're going to throw up, take this. Just, yeah, it's just been a candy dish of medication. My thyroid is mostly functioning, but I have to take like a topical testosterone application every morning. So I've got to rub that on my shoulders. It's just, I can't have surgery again. So I don't have to worry about having to go back under the knife. But in a year's time, if the University of Washington, I get another MRI, I can always re-eligible for another round of Gamma Knife.
Gotcha.
So that's something that can always be done too, if the tumor's still, it's slowed in its growth, but it's still, being a problem. Let's get you in another round and whatnot. Okay. So it's been a fun 5 years, Drew.
Yeah. I can't imagine, man. But I'm glad to, one, you're here with us. You're in good spirits. And, thank you for giving us the update on that.
Not a problem.
That's so fascinating. Like, just thinking though, like what they are capable of doing nowadays.
Totally blows my mind.
Yeah. Even from when you and I were kids.
Yeah. A huge change. My dad was recently, had a heart valve replaced. One of his valves wasn't behaving properly. So I'm like, oh man, my dad's going to have open heart surgery and be laid up for weeks and weeks. And what's the chance that he could die? And he was home the next day. I'm like, what? He's like, yeah, they opened up a vein in my leg, went in and delivered the expanding pig valve right over the old one. And I was home the next day. And I'm like, are you kidding me? It's like, so here we are in 2023 and you can get a 1-day heart valve replacement surgery.
Uh-huh.
And I'm like, what a time to be alive.
Right.
Man.
It blows my mind, the
Yeah,
advances made
I was
in
just-
medicine.
Yeah. The advances we've made just in the last decade,
Mm-hmm.
let alone the last 4 decades, has just been, it's exponential. And just like, yeah, my dad had heart surgery. Oh, and I was expecting to know like big scar and they've cracked his ribs open, you know.
It's like, oh,
Like,
no,
no,
big deal. Like,
no. He had a 2-inch incision on his thigh where they went in with the scope and did all of that.
mm-hmm. You're looking for that picture. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Oh.
And I have one on each side and like 1, 2, 3, 4. And it's just this big Iron Man jaws kind of right here at the chin and had a big bar on the back. It was, I couldn't see it. It was out of my peripheral vision along the bar. So after I was done, it'd be like, yeah, you can eat, drink if you're hungry or whatnot. And it'd be like, dink, ow, damn,
No.
dink, ow. You just kick off. There's this giant titanium bar screwed across my face. They wouldn't let me take it home because the screws alone were about $400.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I'm at least it's pretty quality if it's going to be that much.
Yeah,
screws.
yeah. And working on the F-35 project now at the machine shop, it's like, yeah, I understand why that tiny piece of titanium is $400. Like,
Yeah.
Gotcha. But they let me take home a couple of the tools used for that from my surgery, and so I've got a set of hemostats, which are the adjustable snips. Essentially, they're not cutters, but they're like crimps. And they lock it down in place. They let me take home my pair of hemostats. So the one of the pairs of hemostats I have in the shop, so like, those are from my surgery.
I want to, I'm going to shift gears a little bit.
There's a better picture of it.
Okay, it kind of looks cool though. Like if it wasn't for the fact that that's like really screwed into your head, like that would look like an awesome cosplay or something.
Oh, absolutely. But they hit me with like lidocaine and all the sites and whatnot. So I felt just the pressure, none of the pain. But there was one back here that they missed. So the doctor's literally, like I said, 3/4 inch drive, just going, and he's like 3 clicks in, and it's, and he's like, pain? Yeah. Pain. Nurse, let's get some more over here. So she just like doubles up the lidocaine and hits me again, and takes like 30 seconds to start the numb, and then he just starts, are you good now? Yeah, okay.
And then at that point, I feel like it's a psychological thing. Like, because they're like, this should not be happening. I should not be hearing or feeling this sensation.
Right. Of my head being squished by a 3/4 inch drive socket, as pins are essentially into my head. You can feel the dents. I've got the dents still in my forehead because it deformed the bone a little bit, but you can still feel the 2 dents in my forehead right here.
That's wild, dude.
Yeah. I did not expect that when I walked into the room. Like, oh,
they don't tell you that on the brochure.
No, they do not. And so it was, okay, Mr. Rains, we're going to get this installed. Cool. And, and I just thought like, those neck arresters where they lock your head in place if you have like a spinal injury. I thought maybe something like that. Like, okay, you're going to feel like, what? Come again, doc? Yeah, we're going to screw these into your head. Like you're going to thread and tap holes in my head? No. But these tapered pins are going to push your skull together. Like, okay.
It's like, oh, I didn't realize I was becoming the next Cenobite.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I was just looking over, like when we talked and we had decided to schedule this. I was just looking over the article that we did on you. Which, first things first, I feel like I gotta apologize. I feel like my writing skills have gotten a lot better in the past year, and since like you were the first guy I did a SDI grad speak on, I'm like, oh no.
Really?
Oh no.
I did not know that. I didn't know that I was your first.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah, because I wasn't even technically full. I wasn't full time at SDI yet.
That's right.
I
That's
was
right.
I was a contracted worker, so I feel like I need to go back. I don't know, maybe redo it or something. But anyway, towards the end, you talked about what you wanted your legacy to be. You said, quote, 50 years from now, somebody comes to me and says, Grandpa, I saw one of your guns at the museum. I'm like, I've done my job. Like, I love to make some cool guns, shoot guns with the boys, all the good stuff that comes with it. But my societal goals, personal goals, friendship goals, and family goals are I want to keep the wheels of gunsmithing and the gunsmithing industry continuing to move for the next 100 years. And it was SDI that helped me pull the trigger on that because I now have the experience and opportunity to deal with some old guns from the customers. So, yeah, I quoted that because I remember you talking about how much you enjoy, especially some of those restoration pieces.
Very much so.
Yeah, I know you've been wrapped up with getting your associates and doing all that. What gun would be, if you had to pick one, would you most want to restore?
If I had the choice of an aged gun to come by,
Yes.
That's a good question. Off the cuff, right away is a Luger PO8. A Luger would be a fun project. I'd love to do a Luger. Man, that's a really good. I'd love to get my hands on a SPAS 12. Restore a SPAS 12. That would be cool. I had the opportunity to touch up a SKS. I had a gentleman, a friend of mine from Clarksville. He's nephews of Dirt King, the owner of Mid-South Shooter Supply. He went down to visit his dad, and he came back with an unfired Japanese SKS from whenever. It was still drowning in cosmoline. There was cosmoline everywhere, but it had never been fired. He had never had a round through it. There was cosmoline in the gas receiver and the tube and everything in the magazine. So I got to do essentially a disassembly, and I posted some short videos of that on my YouTube channel. And so I just like, hey, welcome back to the day in the shop. Real quick on the bench, we've got an SKS. So I did a little video on the fact that cosmoline air dries and thickens, and how do you remove cosmoline? Okay, well, it's a petroleum-based product. Okay, we'll use mineral spirits, and I liked doing SKSs. I liked that SKS because it was all numbers matching, bayonet matched. It had even he didn't know that the butt plate has the tool storage. There in the butt plate there's a little flap that comes out. He's like, what is that? I'm like, that's the bore brush. He's like, what? And he had just factory new bore brushes buried in cosmoline just sitting in there. He's like, no way. I'm like, So even he didn't know that. He had picked it up from his dad, and he's like, I had no idea that was in there. Like, that's why they bring me guns.
Yep.
So I got to spend a few weeks pulling all the cosmoline off of that and function checking everything and whatnot. And he's like, that's a 5-round magazine. Nope, it's a dropout 10-round mag. He's like, haha, cool. So I really enjoyed doing that SKS. That was a lot of fun. But in the terms of full restoration, if it was a pistol, probably a Luger.
Yeah.
If it was a rifle, I would love to do an old what is it? Swedish Mauser. It was the M91 K31, I think is what it was. The straight bolt. It's the old Mausers that had it was like an 8mm Mauser that had a straight bolt system. I'd love to do one of those as an old restoration.
Yeah, I see what you're talking about.
Yeah, the old like K98 Mausers, but it was called a keg barrel or keg handle because there were two pieces of aluminum that were threaded together to be the handle. So it was, rather than, up 60 degrees and back, it was a straight bolt system. So it just encammed the spent cartridge out the side. So they called them keg latches or something, because they just looked like a little tiny beer keg attached to the side of the gun.
It looks cool though. Like,
yeah.
I just typed it in and I was like, oh my goodness.
They're great. They were fantastic. The White Death is a song by Sabaton that talks about the finish. And that was the rifle that he used. That K31. And so I love that gun because just not even that exact gun, but it was a permutation of it. But that gun specifically would be a fun one to restore.
I bet, especially because it's so unique.
Yeah.
Of course, Hickok has a video on it.
Uh-huh.
Yep.
What do you think? He's got a video on everything.
I'd be shocked if he doesn't have like a video on like that gun, like the gun drawing I did when I was in 5th grade or something. Like, all right, we're shooting this one here today.
Today we have the standard issue Imperial plasma pistol.
Love that guy. Now, and
it's my new toy.
Hey, look at that. Good gosh.
Uh-huh. It's a Springfield OSP Elite. I used my student discount to put a Venom on it.
Mhm.
It's got a nightstick 850 lumen optic on it. And then it's got my Form 1.
I wish everyone could see the way the lighting completely changed in David's office when he turned.
It's the bastard's bright. It's bright at 850 lumens. And it was standard factory for 22 rounds.
Mm.
So this is my backpack go everywhere with me pistol. I have a compensator that if I take the suppressor off, I've got a long barrel compensator from Springer Precision that goes on here. It helps with, I mean, this gun, it's 9mm. It doesn't have a lot of recoil, but
Sure.
when this configuration comes off, that goes on, and that's my speed steel configuration.
That's nice.
I love it.
That's
I love
nice.
it.
Yeah, we've been pretty cordial throughout this whole conversation, but you do have some umbrage that needs to be addressed.
Okay.
You've taken some umbrage with some of the picks for top war films.
Oh, yes. Yes. With you and George and Joey talking yesterday, or the last podcast posted, you had some great selections. I was not upset at all of them, but there were some that I had issues with. That you mentioned The Boy in the Striped Pajamas. Great early 2000s film and whatnot. But I grew up in the generation of like my dad's. I grew up watching, the VHS copies of my dad's films. So you had like the Dirty Dozen. The original Dirty Dozen was awesome. 1967. But there was the Heroes of Telemark. You had the Guns of Navarone. The Guns of Navarone is a World War II, 1943, is Nazi occupied a Grecian island with a couple of naval guns, and it was the team that had to get on the island and pick out the guns and whatnot. Awesome films. That and the Heroes of Telemark are two like mid 1960s movies that are just underrated gold. You had Gregory Peck, Von Ryan's Express, you had Frank Sinatra. Like there were some older films that are just like some of the best, because I like to think of film as always evolutionary. Somebody's film is based off predilections of somebody else's film. So when the fact that film is still only really 100, 125, 150 years old, maybe. So when you have movies from 60 or 70 years ago, it's like, well, what's this movie based on? Oh, the creative director grew up with this, so he made his version of this with that.
Yeah. And, that makes me think of when I think of Sergio Leone doing Fistful of Dollars, essentially being a remake of Yojimbo. Yeah. But then at the same time, a lot of those samurai films were influenced by earlier American Westerns. And so it's wild how like the influences, like you said, can come about, and you get these classic movies where it's like, oh yeah, I was inspired by this. I wanted to do a bit of a retelling, change some things up.
You had mentioned your love for Clint Eastwood.
Yes.
With Wild West films. Have you seen Bob Valdez and Valdez is Coming?
No.
Great film. Great. Have you seen Quigley Down Under?
I have actually.
Okay, good. Because I'd have real issues with you if you hadn't seen Quigley Down Under. But Valdez is Coming, another fantastic underrated Western. There's a reference that he makes in it. You can tell him Valdez is coming. And he's like that aged, like semi-Hispanic, Mexican grown up. And he's like, you have angered Valdez. You can tell him Valdez is coming. And so Valdez has where did you get those bullets? They were my own load. So he just makes his own, he just creates his own cartridge and his own powder load. Are you going to be able to hit that? Yes.
Wait, hold up. That's Burt Lancaster?
Uh-huh. You tell him Valdez is coming. But Valdez is great. Great Western. I mean, I grew up on The Rifleman, Gunsmoke, those black and white. I was a big fan of like TV Land. So reruns. Oh yeah. We're doing this. But Valdez, Quigley Down Under, The Good, Bad, and the Ugly is obviously a staple.
For sure.
But Quigley Down Under, most people have seen. I would like to say, but people don't understand that Valdez is Coming is just a fantastic, underrated, with a AAA actor. Lancaster has not got a small repertoire under his belt. And they're like, I've never seen it. And I'm like, that's criminal.
Well, it's wild because it does not, like when you say the name Burt Lancaster, and then you see the image of him and Valdez is Coming, it's transformative. But that's like, I think for me, that's very intriguing because it's like, oh, okay, that's interesting. Let's see where this goes.
Just not somebody you would have think could adopt that persona as that character and do so well in it. I need to make that like a required reading for you or something. Then next time we talk, you've got to watch Valdez. I grew up volunteering at the local library. So I was always taking a book or a movie home at the end of every day. And like, oh, you go ahead, David, what books do you want to take home? For a long time, for the better part of a decade, I'd take home a pile of Star Wars books by E.A. Big. And read through Star Wars. Big science fiction guys, you can see by the adornment of the symbolism upon my skin. And then it was like, oh, David, you should get that movie and we'll watch it. It's one of my favorites. Okay, Dad, I'll get it. I'll come home with it. He's like, okay, we come home with it and like, awesome. Great film. Like, yeah.
I definitely have to check it out, especially if it is like a spaghetti Western, you know.
So it's 1971. 1971. Yes, 1971.
Okay, yeah.
It's great. It's just fantastic. And, you know, the strong chin Burt Lancaster sells it really well. It's just absolutely, I gotta have it. Gotta have it.
Well, so you've been able to air out your grievances, and now it's time for me to air out mine.
Okay.
You have the habit of flexing on me. I'll get, ever since we met back in April of last year, intermittently I'll get these images from David where he's like, hey, just had to brag a little bit, including one from you said that yesterday?
Is 2 days ago.
Yeah. Tell me how that happened.
So John and Becca came up. Every year, the church in Wenatchee is called Grace City Church. They do a men's conference, Building Stronger Men. So they do a 3-day weekend of doing everything that men are good at: protecting, building, providing. So they provide courses of like, okay, you want to be a protector? Well, come over to the ammunition reloaders and the guys that have a history in self-defense or family protection and whatnot. And last year, John Lovell was going to come over and do his presentation, but he wasn't able to. But John and Becca came over this year and they provided a 3-hour course Monday night on self-defense. It was called Katie Bar the Door. And it was a 3-hour seminar essentially on the best practices you could take to protect your family. Outdoor lighting, motion sensor lights, you know, have a family plan of like, okay, you have a code word of there's a robbery or there's a home invasion. He denoted the two. And so he was there for 3 hours. There was 800 people in that auditorium. And him and Becca normally do like 50 to 100. And they said, this is the largest group that we've ever presented for. And just like, wait, STI is a sponsor of his channel and he's going to be in Wenatchee? No. So I had like 4 days to reserve my name on the Katie Bar the Door. Oh, $15? Hell yeah, I'll pay for that. So Monday night comes around and okay, honey, I gotta get going. So I went down, found my seat, waited, and then I got to shake his hand a few minutes before he went on stage because I wore my SDI shirt. I wore my
which
nice
I was
polo
happy
button.
about.
Yep.
I saw you represent. I'm like,
Had to-
okay, well, you
had
at
to
least-
had to rep the brand. I took my SDI book. Because he obviously knows SDI is the sponsor of his channel. So when he saw this shirt, he was at that, He's like, Mr. Lovell, my name's David. Pleasure to meet you, sir. I was the 2020 outstanding graduate for SDI. He's like, awesome. It's a pleasure to meet you, sir. And I'd love to talk to you after the show. And so they did a meet and greet after the seminar, and you waited in line because there was a lot of people that wanted to see John. Some people had never heard of him, but they loved the show. His wife, Becca, had a great presentation as well. So a lot of the women felt comfortable asking her questions regarding, well, how do you carry if you're going to go for a jog or if you have the kids with you? And so that half of the crowd was able to magnetize to Becca, and then the male half was able to magnetize to John. And so there's this great back and forth of, well, I as the mother would do this. Well, I as the father am the protector of the family. I need to do this. So it was I got to meet him, shook his hand. I said, John, you were essentially John was one of the YouTubers I was watching that got me into SDI. Because I had been watching and I rebuilt my new kit based on some of his plate carrier videos and whatnot. And he didn't know on his website, he has STAC Kiwi pouches. Yeah, the little 3MAX. STAC is a Washington company. They're about 3 hours north, about 3 hours east in Stanwood, 3 hours west, in Stanwood. And he's like, I didn't know that. He's like, yeah, I had my order in 2 days because they, live so close. I was like, cool. But it was just I could die now knowing that I got to shake the hand of John Lovell, the warrior poet himself, and said, David, you're 4 weeks away. Yes, sir. 4 weeks away. Congratulations, David. God bless. And I'm just like, I could die.
Yeah. I mean, he seems like a great dude,
he's
nice
great
guy.
Him and his wife, fantastic power couple, just great with each other. And of course I had to flex. And you were of course going to meet the ire of that.
Well, I was going to say, listen, I'm honored that I was even considered to be flexed upon in that manner. So I think that might be a good place to leave it. Kind of came full circle. David, thank you so much for coming on, dude.
Not a problem. Not a problem, Drew. It is always a pleasure to see your face.
And if people want to keep up with you, you have your YouTube channel, correct?
I have a very, very small YouTube channel of about 30 subscribers. I am somewhat absent in it as of late, but post-graduation, I intend to be a little more involved in it. I'm gonna try to be a little more active on the channel and upload some more videos and more content and whatnot, as I will not be worried throughout the week of drowning in project of getting all my FTT and my psychology and physical science done. If they want to follow me, they can just go to YouTube and type in David Rains, or one of my personas is known as Marshmallow Ace. Yeah, I'll post content and updates. I do shorts occasionally. When I re-enrolled, I started to do a few shorts here and there of hey, then there's the Norinco SKS maintenance video, I posted that 6 months ago. That's got 100 views or whatever. I do intend to be more active on it, and it'll just take a little time for me to get there.
Cool deal. Well, I'm looking forward to it, man. All right. And that has been this week's episode of The Gun Rack. Everyone, have fun, stay safe, and we will see you at the range.
Sonoran Desert Institute is an online school accredited by the DEAC. It is headquartered at 1555 West University Drive in Tempe, Arizona. For more information about how you can craft your firearms future, visit sdi.edu.